let's get rid of those manual JSON files. And let's talk Datagen. 121 Minecraft modding courses available down below, with over 11 hours of content covering everything from the basics all the way to block entities and custom mobs. Alright, we found some back and tell everyone more, and in this tutorial we'll be adding Datagen to our project right here, and it's going to be very interesting indeed. As the highest level overview, what the frick is Datagen? Well, basically we have a lot of different JSON files that we have been creating manually over here, including tag JSON files. We have loot tables, we have recipes, right? I basically, on most of the loot tables here, I even copied some of them over and prepared those basically in advance. And now all of this will be done via code. Now, when I say all of this, I mean almost all of it, except for the en_us JSON file. And then sometimes in some tutorials, let's say, it makes more sense to actually make them manually, simply because creating the JSON file for a specific thing that you're only ever going to use once makes more sense than creating the whole code for it, because that is almost more complicated if you don't intend to use it multiple times, basically. But because I like being dramatic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the data folder, I'm going to delete the block states folder, I'm going to delete the model folder, and now we have no more JSON files. The only JSON file remaining is the en_us JSON file. That is the one thing we're not going to datagen, simply because I personally don't think that there's literally any positive in doing that, because you literally still have to define, you still have to say, hey, this is the item, and then this is the item name. I don't see a reason why we would do that. That is why I don't do it. Now, of course, you can, but in this case, I'm not going to actually implement that here. With that done, we can now go on and create the Datagen package over here in the tutorial mode package. Right-click new package called Datagen. And here we'll need a couple of new classes. Let's go and create all of them. The first is the DataGenerators class. Here we go. The second one is going to be the ModBlockStateProvider. And then we're going to have the ModBlockTagProvider. We then have the ModItemModelProvider, and as always, of course, all of the code is also available down below. This is probably going to be more useful, in this one than any other time. Then we have the ModItemTagProvider. We then have the ModBlockLootTable Provider. And then lastly, we have the ModRecipeProvider. You can see a couple of them. Usually by the name, you should more or less understand what they're going to do. We're going to start with the DataGenerators class, where we just set up everything so we can then go on and implement each of the different providers, add them to the DataGenerators, and then you basically are going to see the JSON files generating. So to set up the DataGenerators class, above the class, you want the @mod.event bus subscriber, so event bus subscriber. We can then import the class over here, Alt and Enter. You can see both of them are yellow, so add mod.event bus subscriber, parentheses mod ID equal to tutorial mod.modID, of course, comma bus is equal to, and then we can just do a mod over here. We can see we want to choose the mod bus, very important. Inside of the DataGenerators class, we're going to have a public static void gather data method. And this is with the gather data event over here as a parameter, very important. And above the method, add subscribe event annotation. Extremely important that this is set up correctly, exactly like this public static void gather data method with the gather data event as a parameter, with the add subscribe event annotation over here, and the annotation above the class is also correct. Then we have some helper variables over here. This is the data generator from net Minecraft data over here, called the generator, equal to event.getGenerator. Then we have a pack output. This is going to be the pack output, equal to the generator.getPackOutput. Then we have an existing file helper called existing file helper, equal to event.getExistingFileHelper, and then a completable future of type holder lookup.provider called the lookup provider, equal to event.getLookupProvider. And those four variables are basically always going to be the case. Highest level overview, those are just needed in order to basically facilitate the providing of all of the JSON files, so that, everything can, basically we can look up certain things, right? We can look up whether or not files already exist, and then we, output them with a pack. Highest level overview. If you're really interested in how all of those work, just go into them, right control, left click, and you can read up on those as well. It's really not necessary in this case. This is just what we're always going to need here in this case for for Datagen. And with what will we start? Let's start with the loot tables at the very top over here. This is going to be quite interesting indeed. So this will extend the ModBlockLootTable over here. We're going to hover over this and implement the generate method. Hover over this again, create constructor matching super, making sure, do we need to choose a particular one? I believe it matters not. We're going to choose the second one. We're going to delete the first two parameters anyway. The first one here is just going to be a set.of, and the second one is going to be featureflags.registry.allFlags. Passing in the p registry here, that is fine. The rest is going to be okay. As always, once again, the code is available to you down below, so you can double check it. I highly recommend you do so because there is a lot of stuff that we're going to do. The first thing in the loot table provider over here, the block loot table provider, is we're going to override the getKnownBlocks method. And here we'll do the following. Once again, I'm going to write this out and then explain. I'm going to do ModBlocks.blocks. This is the deferred register. GetEntries.stream.map, mapping registry object : get. And then after the first closing parentheses, : iterator. Now, what is this whole craziness over here? We're basically taking every single block that we have defined right here, right? The Alexandrite block, the raw Alexandrite block, the OR, the deep state OR, and the magic block. I'm going to say, hey, those are all of the blocks that we know, right? And we're basically with the stream over here, we're just making it available to this class, right? That's the highest level overview. You don't really need to like get into, okay, what is a stream? What is a map? We're basically just making it available in the order, or let's say in the format that this particular class wants it. And that is basically the last part here. The entries literally is just going to be a sort of the list of all of our different blocks over here. And if we do this, it's very important. This now means that we have to add a new loot table for each of our blocks, right? So in the generate method, how do we add a loot table? Very straightforward. If the block drops itself, we literally just call the drop self method and then say modblocks dot, let's say Alexandrite block dot get. That's it, right? That is the loot table for itself. And that's really easy. The same thing goes for the raw Alexandrite block, let's say, right? That's going to also drop itself, and the magic block will also drop itself. Now, in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out just so that you will see the first type of error that might occur, and that's going to be when you have a block actually registered, but you don't have a loot table for it set up. There's two possible solutions for it, very straightforward, and we'll see that in a bit. But first of all, what about the OR and the deep state OR? Well, the OR was just a normal quote-unquote OR. To do that, we're going to call the add method. So this .add modblocks.alexandrite OR.get. Second parameter over here is going to be a function from block to builder. So we're going to type in the block. We're going to do the arrow, and then we're going to call the create OR drop method. Passing in, first of all, the OR. So this is going to be the Alexandrite OR.get. And the second parameter is the item that drops. This is modItems.raw_Alexandrite.get. Very straightforward, very easy. Now, you might have seen, right, the create OR drop method. We can actually go into this. So control left click on this and see there's different methods over here that can be quite useful. And one of them could, for example, be the copper OR drops. Now, one of the issues here is that we can define the block, but we can't define the item, sadly, right? So you can see the item here is not really like changeable. And what you can do is literally just copy this over. So you literally just take the create copper OR drops method. Now this is also available down below. So you have the same thing exactly copied over here, because I'm going to actually change the name. This is going to be the create multiple OR drops. I'm going to change this a little bit by adding an item over here. So item, import the item class. Then we're going to have a float min drops and a float max drops. And then instead of the raw copper, it is now going to drop the item right here. Instead of 2, it's going to drop min drops. And instead of the 5 over here, it's going to drop max drops. There you go. That's literally it. And we can even simplify this just a little bit more, kind of like this. You know, we can reformat this however we want. You can also keep it like this. That's fine. The formatting doesn't matter that much. And now we can reuse this particular method over here for any type of our different ORs. So if we now say this.add modblocks.deepslate Alexandrite or Alexandrite deepslate OR.get, then we say block, making the arrow again, and then we're going to do create multiple OR drops, modblocks.Alexandrite deepslate OR.get. The item, once again, is going to be modItems.rawAlexandrite.get. And then we can define how many should drop between 2 and 5, that's fine, or 2 and 6, that's also okay, and there you go. And this is now going to generate the entire crazy like JSON file that we've seen before, and it is fairly straightforward. Obviously, in this case, we do have to use a helper method this is we're going to run across the helper method inside of Datagen quite a few more times, because sadly not everything is available to us from vanilla, right? So that's sadly the case, or it is hard-coded like here, which is obviously going to be a bit of a bummer, but there you go. That is basically the idea. And with that, the loot table here is actually crazily done. I know it's quite interesting over here. And what we'll have now is we will now actually add this to our data generators, so we can actually see the JSON files form. Now, this is the only one that is going to look a little bit crazy over here, but don't worry, it's going to be fine. So this is going to be generator.addProvider. That's always going to be the case. And in this case, we want to include the server because the server needs to know what loot is generated. Here, we want to make a new loot table provider, very important, a new loot table provider, passing in the pack output, passing in collections.emptySet, and then a list.of, a new loot table provider.subprovider entry, passing in ModBlockLootTableProvider, ::new, comma, loot context param sets.block. After the second closing parentheses, passing in the lookup provider, and then closing it all off with a semicolon. And there you go. Now this looks pretty crazy. However, this is basically going to generate us the custom block loot tables. And now that we have this, what we can do is go to the Gradle over here, and instead of running the client, we're now going to double click run data. And this is going to run the data for us. So this is now going to, run through, and it's going to collect everything. Now here, we will actually get an error, and that is a deliberate error, right? We have made this so that the Magic Block does not have a loot table, so we're going to get an error. Let's just let this run through. For the first time, if you do this, it can take a little bit longer, but usually it shouldn't take longer than maybe a minute at most. You can see right now it's downloading the assets. I haven't run the client for a long while, so sometimes it just has to real download stuff. Let's just let this run through, and once we see the error that I basically want to show you, then we'll see this. So the power of editing, we now see the invocation target exception. The first thing is that I basically want to also give with you as as a tip over here. Don't freak out when you get an error. Literally, programming is just getting errors until you don't get errors anymore. That's literally what programming is, just to tell you. And also, you can literally see if we go to run data over here and we just scroll up a little bit, look at this. Missing loot table magic block. It literally tells you what the issue is. Now, sometimes errors can be a little bit more, not as clear, let's say, that this is, but this is very clear. Missing loot table from magic block. This is what I told you, right? When we use the get known blocks over here and we give them every block that we know, well, then it's going to also expect a magic block loot table. We can fix this by doing one of two things. Either we're going to give it a loot table by using the drop self, or in the ModBlocks class, in the magic block, if we're like, the magic block, it doesn't really need to drop itself. Then we simply call the no loot table method on here, and that is also going to work. So one or the other works totally fine, and that is it. So if you ever get that issue, when you, for example, add a couple more blocks, you run data, you're like, oh, what is this error? No, don't worry at all, number one. And number two, you've seen this before, missing loot table for X block, you either call the no loot table method, or you add a loot table for it. And if you now rerun this over here, run data, and then just the play button, what you'll find is it's going to run through totally fine. And in the end over here, once it actually runs through, you can see 9 seconds, we get a build successful. That is usually the desired outcome. What's most important here is, though, all providers took however many milliseconds, and then you can see how many different JSON files have been written, and 4 of them have been written. If we now go on to the source generated over here, data, and we can see these are our loot tables, and look at them. They look exactly the same as we have defined them before, right? And now they're generated. Remember, right? This whole loot table is generated with this line. I just want to, come on. How is this not just an immediate like, oh, this is absolutely worth it? Like, imagine you have like 18 different ors. Like, having to write all of this for like each different or and then renaming it. No. Bam, 1 line here, or I mean, I guess this case 2 lines, but we can literally do it 1 line, so it doesn't have to be 2 lines. But there you go, right? That's loot tables, and that's the first part of all of this done. The next part is going to be, block states and item models. Those are going to be interesting. We'll start with the block states over here, and this is going to extend the ModBlockStateProvider from NetMicroForge client level mod. I don't even know, client model generators. There you go. I'm going to hover over this and implement the register states and models method. hover over this again, create constructor matching super, where we can delete the mod ID string parameter and literally just give it our mod ID over here because, well, we know what it is, tutorial mod.mod ID. And then it gets quite interesting because for the different states right here, what we have is this basically registers the block states JSON file and the block model JSON file, and sometimes the item model JSON file, but not always. Now, what we can do is we're going to make ourselves a immediate helper method that's going to be super easy. That's going to be a block with item. That's what we're going to call it, which it's going to take in a registry object of type block. Not this block. That's, see, I saw this. It wanted to import the wrong block class. That's what I keep been telling you when you add a block class, net Minecraft world level block. That's the right class. There you go. And it's going to be the block registry object right here. And then we simply want to call the simple block with item method. But you can see this requires a model file. And, well, basically all of our basic blocks are all going to be cube all. We've seen this before. So we can literally just do like call this method block registry object.get, then cube all, and passing in the block registry object.get, because in our case all of our blocks actually are a cube all. So literally we can just call this method like 5 times and just use that block with item modblocks.alexandrite block. We can do the raw one, then we can do the 2 ors and the magic block, right? So there's going to be the or over here, then the deep slate or, and lastly the magic block, and there you go. That's all going to be our states done. And this, right, the simple block with item is also going to generate the item model JSON file. So this is really cool. All of this, right, these like literally just one line and one helper method over here generates 3 JSON files that usually took, they don't take that long, but still, it's pretty cool. And we will see in the future a couple more helper methods just because sometimes we just don't get access to everything that we would like to have access to. There's a couple of things over here for like, you know, if we can take a look at this, there's like stairs and slabs and stuff like that. That is all accessible. Buttons, there is something with buttons, but it doesn't quite work. But we'll see all of that when we get to it. And that is going to be the first step. And the second one is the item model provider over here, which is of course specifically for the item models. This extends the item model provider class. Hover over this, implement the register models method. Hover over this again, create constructor matching super, where once again, we delete the mod ID and just add our own over here. There you go. And then this one is going to be quite interesting because in this case, what we can actually do is use the basic item over here because, well, we only have basic items. First one is alexandrite.get right here. Then we have the raw alexandrite. Then we're going to have the, let's take a look. We should have the chisel over here, but not the ID. We just don't want the chisel. Then we have the kohlrabi. And we also have the Aurora Ashes. Are those all that we have so far? This is indeed all of our items, and that's literally it. So in this case, very, very straightforward. Once again, we will see a couple of variants of this, a couple of helper methods in the future as well. But let's just see how we can actually add both the block state provider and the item model provider to the Datagen over here. And it's actually fairly straightforward. I'm going to put this at the very bottom because those two are client only. So we're going to do generator.addProvider, event.include client this time, new ModItemModelProvider, item model provider, passing in the pack output, passing in the existing file helper, and there you go. And then the second one, generator.addProvider, event.include client, once again, new ModBlockStateProvider, passing in the pack output and the existing file helper, and bam, that's it. That's all we need to do. So once again, choosing run data over here, just pressing the play button, and this, oh, you're going to love this, okay? This is going to be so freaking cool because with just these lines and, you know, just this basic setup right here, now in the generated one, we now also have an assets folder. I mean, you can see 20 written JSON files. Look at this. All of our block states JSON files written, all of the block model JSON files written, all of the item model JSON files written, every single thing written over here automatically with like 1 or 2 lines. I mean, this is so cool. Imagine, right? If you have like 100 items, you would be mad making all of the different like JSON files manually. If you had 100 different blocks, right, making all of this manually is so much work. And then just having this all generated automatically is super freaking fast, right? So that is the block states. And then we get to the block tags. Let's see. That is indeed correct. That is going to be the block tags. And this is going to be extending the block tags provider. We're going to hover over this and implement the add tags method. Hover over this again, create constructor matching super, where we will change this only by a little bit. And that is, once again, deleting the mod ID right here, and then tutorial.mod.modID easily enough. And then in the add tags, the first thing we want to do is call the tag method blocktags.mineable with pickaxe, because that's the first thing we wanted to do. And then just add all of our mod blocks over here, modblocks. Let's do alexandrite block.get, and then we can just duplicate the add method over here, and we can add as many as we would want. It's going to be the ore, the deep slate ore, the magic block. So all of those are mineable with a pickaxe. Then we can do tag, and once again, block tags dot, this is going to be the needs iron tool, right? So we can also define this. So it's obviously because for all of the mining, basically, modblocks dot, let's do the deep slate ore dot get. There we go. And then if we wanted to, let's say, for example, we could even do the needs diamond tool, right? So needs diamond tool, we can, for example, put in the raw alexandrite. Why not? You know, let's just go a little bit crazy over here. And those would be all of the different block tags that we have so far. Obviously, if we ever need more, well, then we can literally just add those as well. Very straightforward. And then let's also go to the item tag provider, and let's finish this one up as well, because they are actually used, both of them together. So this is extending the item tags provider. Hover over this, implement the add tags method, hover over this again, create constructor matching super, where this time I actually think we do need to focus on the constructor. I know I say this all the time, but I think that there's one that is specifically for this. We want to get the one with the second one. The second one looks correct. Let's get the second one right here. And then there we go. Yeah, delete the mod ID again, so we can change this to tutorial.mod.modID. And if the names over here annoy you, press on it, Shift F6, pack output. Shift F6 is the completable future. And then here, Shift F6, lookup completable future, totally fine. And then in the add tags, we just have one of them, and that's going to be the modtags.items.transformable items, where we can now add our custom tag, or this is a custom tag over here, of course, where we can do the alexandrite, we can do raw alexandrite right here, and then the rest are items. So that's going to be on the items one, let's say coal, and then not with a semicolon though, and then with a stick, let's say, and then the rest, or the last one was the compass, if I recall correctly. If it's something different, that's fine. The transformable items obviously were just the items that you can throw onto the magic block, and that would transform into a diamond. Obviously, you can change that however which way you'd want. That's totally fine. But then how are those two added over here? Those two are added, going to be in the middle right here, and that's going to be the block tags provider. So we're going to make a variable out of this, very important, equal to the new mod block tags provider, pack output, passing in the lookup provider, passing in the existing file helper. And then calling generator.addProvider with event.includeServer this time once again, and then just passing in the variable right here. And we need the variable for the second call, because here what we're going to do is we're going to make the event.include not the client but the server. Once again, very important that you notice that this includes the correct one. We have a new ModItemTagProvider, passing in pack output, passing in the lookup provider, passing in blocktagsprovider.contentsGetter, passing in the existing file helper. Looks a little bit crazy, but basically the tags are sort of a little bit intertwined, and that is why the contents getter over here for the block tags is needed for the item tags. We can run data again, and it's going to generate us the different JSON files right here, the different JSON files right here, and we almost have it completely done, but not just quite. Let's just see. There we go. 4 new JSON files. That is correct. Right, 3 of them here, 1 of them here. And we can actually see this as well. In the data folder, we now also have a Minecraft folder, because, well, some of them are under the Minecraft namespace, and our own, custom one is under our tutorial mod namespace. And lastly, we have the ModRecipeProvider, which is going to be quite interesting indeed. This is going to look kind of like this. It's going to extend the recipe provider over here, and it's going to also implement the iCondition builder. We're going to hover over this and implement the method, the build recipes method. Hover over again, create constructor, matching super, which is correct. And then we will see. In the build recipes, we have different types of recipes that we can build. We can build shaped recipes, we can build shapeless recipes, and other types of recipes. I'm going to show you the shaped and shapeless. I'm going to show you a variant of the shapeless. And I'm going to show you the ore smelting and the ore blasting. Let's see. So we can call the shaped recipe builder.shaped, passing in a recipe category. Let's do miscellaneous. We can say modblocks.alexandrite block.get. This is going to be the result, and then we can call the pattern method 3 times. I think you should know where this is going to go, right? So we're going to do AAA, 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 because, well, we're going to define this A, right? This is going to be a character. Note, this is a singular quotation mark, not a double quotation mark, because this is a character, like a char, not a string. ModItems.alexandrite.get. So we'll define the A as the Alexandrite. This is going to be unlocked by get has name ModItems.alexandrite.get. Second parameter or second thing we pass in is the has method ModItems.alexandrite.get. And then after the last closing parentheses, a .save, passing in P recipe output. And this is the way to set up a shaped recipe. The shaped recipe is going to get unlocked if you have a Alexandrite in your inventory. Right, that's the way that this is unlocked. This is why we have this unlocked by. The result is the Alexandrite block, and this is the pattern inside of the inventory. That's why it's a 3x3, or the inventory, rather, the crafting table, right? And you can, of course, also do, in theory, that, right? Then you need 2 lines of this. All of that can be done. Same with the normal recipes. That's a shaped recipe. A shapeless recipe is going to be done by doing shapeless recipe builder.shapeless, passing in, once again, a recipe category. We're just going to use miscellaneous, ModItems.alexandrite.get, and then 9 of them, because the count is going to be 9. So this is the result, and then how many we're going to get. This requires the following thing, ModBlocks.alexandrite.block.get. So we just need to put that into the crafting table in whatever slot we want. This is going to be unlocked by get has name, passing in ModBlocks.alexandrite.block.get. And then the second parameter here is, once again, the has method, ModBlocks.alexandrite.block.get. At the end of here, .save, passing in the P recipe output. And now we can get Alexandrite. Now, this is all awesome, right? So this is basically going to be 9 Alexandrite in an inventory in the crafting table is going to get you Alexandrite block. Putting in the Alexandrite block is going to get you out the 9 Alexandrite again. That's all great. But let's say I have another, another crazy, like, shapeless recipe over here that I'm also going to get. Maybe I'm going to get like 32 Alexandrite out of a magic block. I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much what it is, just that it's going to be the same recipe output, right? The same result over here, because the name of the JSON files when they're generated like this, they are always the exact name of the output, which of course here, that's not quite going to work, right? Because both of them get you Alexandrite. And what you can then do is, in the save method right here, you can literally just add a ID. So always add your mod ID. So you can either do this, or you can literally just say tutorial.mod.mod_ID plus, and then a colon. Actually, I'm pretty sure the colon is important. And then whatever the name is, Alexandrite from Magic Block, let's say. There you go. And then now this is going to be called Alexandrite from Magic Block, and it's going to be put under the tutorial mod namespace, very importantly, and that's literally it, right? So if you ever run into that issue where you might get an error in the recipes because, well, you have the same result, literally just add this, and then you're going to be good to go. And then we have something very, very interesting, because when we smelt or blast an ore or raw item, well, that it's kind of always the same, right? It's like there should be something for it. And you know what? There is, because if we type in ore, you can see ore blasting or smelting. There are actually, by the way, quite a few different methods over here in the recipe provider available to you to use, right? Including, for example, just the 9 block to storage stuff. So that would generate these two. However, the reason I showed them to you manually here is because you should know how the shaped recipes work, how the shapeless recipes work. And then for the rest, highly recommended, control left click on the recipe provider and take a look at all of those. Extremely useful, like actually just insanely useful. And we're going to use the ore smelting over here, right? And we'll say, wait, is this real? Yes. We're going to put in the P recipe provider, or P recipe output rather. And then we need a list. You can see a list of item like. This is going to be our ingredients because, well, wait a second. The raw Alexandrite is going to smelt to Alexandrite, and the ore and the deep state ore. And in theory, we could have like other types of ores. So we're going to have a list of item like. This is going to be the Alexandrite underscore smeltables equal to the list.of moditems.raw alexandrite.get, comma, modblocks.alexandrite ore.get, and then lastly, modblocks.deepslate ore. There you go. So this is the Alexandrite deep state ore. Then we can pass this in. Alexandrite smeltables. We can pass in the recipe category of miscellaneous. You can pass in the result, which is ModItems alexandrite.get. The experience is 0.5. Cooking time for smelting is 200. And then the group is going to be alexandrite. Now I've crazed myself up. I don't know how to spell it anymore. There you go. Another crazy thing is, well, what about blasting? Or blasting. Changing the cooking time to 100. Or bam, done. Oh, to 100. There you go. Bam. Done. This is very useful because this is going to generate a lot of different files. However, there is an asterisk attached to this. We will see this in a second. For now, we'll add this to the data generators, and we're going to add this right here. This is going to be generator.addProvider, event.includeServer once again, of course. And this is going to be the ModRecipe. This is going to be a new ModRecipeProvider, passing in the pack output, passing in the lookup provider, and there we go. And if we now run this, well, all of our recipes are going to generate. However, specifically with these two, we're going to run into a tiny issue, which we will resolve, don't worry, but it is going to be a tiny issue. First of all, 18 JSON files generated with all of this craziness. That's pretty crazy. In the data folder. And then Minecraft recipe. What do you mean Minecraft? Yes. Sadly, the smelting and blasting recipes with these methods sadly get generated in Minecraft. And I have not found a way to easily change this. I mean, wait a second. I have found a way to easily change this, but we will have to copy over the methods for this. I have this prepared already, and literally it is as simple as the following. So we're going to have these different methods right here. Those are, of course, available to you down below. And literally the only change that you need to make is right here. In the PID, you just need to do tutorialmod.modid plus, and then the colon, and then getting the name here. That's literally it. Just this tiny bit over here in the or cooking method, that is going to be enough. And now this also uses the ones from this class. And if we now rerun this, what you'll find is that it is as easy as doing that. And we can see the Minecraft data stuff is going to disappear, while in the tutorial mod one, well, new recipes will unlock. You can see, there you go. So 12 of them were removed, 12 of them are written again. And now in the recipes right here, we can see all of our different recipes all available there. The advancements, by the way, are all for the recipes. So just, you don't need to keep them in mind or anything. They are just for the unlock spy rate, basically, when it's like, hey, you have Alexandrite now, the Alexandrite block recipe is going to unlock. So just keep that in mind. And we can also see, by the way, the Alexandrite from Magic Block right here. So this is the other JSON file that we've defined right here. That is also there. And yeah, so when it comes to the smelting and blasting, it's a shame that we have to, basically copy over the same code with just like this tiny difference here. But overall, it's still going to be really useful because once again, like imagine, right, you had like maybe an end ore and a nether ore too, right? That's going to be 5 different ores over here. So that's going to be 10 like JSON files done with like 2 lines. Absolutely amazing. Like in my opinion, this is crazy. Imagine you had like 18 different like types of ores. I would love this. I would love this. So there you go. And now, if I recall correctly, I think we should have all of the JSON files generated and everything done. Once again, everything is also available to you down below, and all of the code is there, so you can, double check, you can copy over, and all of that craziness. And well, let's just on the top right here over here, we change to client over here, then run the client, and let's just see if everything is still available to us. But I'm pretty sure it is. And we find ourselves back in Minecraft, and what you'll find is that everything still has its texture, and of course you can see it even unlocks the different recipes over here. Absolutely freaking amazing. We can still do this. We can still do this. I mean, I don't even know what to tell you. Everything still works, and that is custom Datagen. And you might say, well, that was a lot of work for a lot of nothing. Oh, just you wait until the next tutorial, and then, then you'll know why. Right, because in this tutorial, we're going to add stairs, slabs, and all of those crazy non-block blocks. Hope to see you there. So, yeah.